Hello, my name is Peter Reynolds. I'm a member of the Gauge O Guild and I've been modelling in 7mm scale for 32 years, since I was in my mid-20s. The purpose of this presentation is to illustrate some of the options that are open to someone just starting out in the scale and sources of assistance should it be required. I will just briefly mention some of the modelling standards that are available to you, although this presentation only really covers the use of commercially available items of ready-to-run rolling stock and track, and there will be a brief mention of basic kits. The purpose of this presentation is not to provide a step-by-step account on how to plan, build and populate a layout. Indeed, you may well already have a good idea of what you wish to achieve. Broadly speaking, modelling in O gauge comprises of coarse scale and fine scale, and there are several associated modelling standards attached to those broad specifications, especially with what could be termed fine scale. Starting with coarse scale, this is mainly a legacy from the advent of railway modelling, when trains and indeed track were made from tin plate. Locomotives were either clockwork or they could be electric, and there were and are some tremendous layouts that are masterpieces of railway operation in miniature, although the track and the stock may appear to be a bit rough and ready to modern tastes. Indeed, there are still suppliers in existence who cater for this genre that still has quite a wide following. Moving to the other end of the spectrum is a standard known as S7, which is something akin to P4 modelling for those of you familiar with 4mm scale. S7 models run on a track with a nominal gauge of 33mm, whereas more commonly available 7mm retail track is either 31.5 or 32mm in gauge. 33mm gauge is closer to the normal 4'8" and a half gauge of the real thing, but there is very little available ready to run out of the box unless you have deep pockets. On the plus side, some ready to run items are relatively easy to convert, meaning merely a wheelset change, and there are guides available as well as a dedicated association. If you were seriously contemplating modelling to this standard, then this presentation will largely not be for you, although some of the sources of inspiration are valid for all standards. Finally, there is 7mm narrow gauge. This is in effect 7mm scale models running on 00 or HO gauge track, and is normally known as O16.5 or ON30. There is ready-made track available for this scale, but again, rolling stock will largely have to be kit built unless you wish to use American prototypes. I'm now going to briefly recount how I got started, and although it took place some time ago, the initial route I followed is still available to newcomers. My introduction to 7mm scale modelling was through a family member, my late father-in-law. He knew I had an interest in railway modelling, but I had never considered the larger scales, mainly due to the availability of space and at the time cost. He worked with someone who was a member of Northolt Model Railway Club, and it was arranged that we would both attend a Friday club night. I felt immediately attracted to the scale after the visit, and at the time there was a local model shop that did stock 7mm items, and I followed a path that was taken by quite a few modellers in the past, and indeed the present. I bought and built a plastic wagon kit. I made a fairly good job of it, and although it is a private owner wagon, it is still running on the layout of the group I am still involved with today, as a P number in the BR steam period. I then bought another wagon and then another, and then I needed something to pull the wagons. At the time there was hardly any motive power options that were ready to run, and what was available was far out of my purchasing ability anyway. The only option was a kit, and I built something with the assistance and advice of other far more experienced members of Northolt Model Railway Club. This was a major benefit of belonging to a club. At the time, electronic communication really was in its infancy, and this was a real way of getting assistance. Although things may have moved on in terms of Facebook, YouTube, and a host of other online resources, there are still considerable benefits to recommending the membership of some form of club, and that is the availability of personal assistance. One of the major benefits of a Gay Joe Guild membership, for example, is the existence of area constituency representatives. These representatives are divided up by geographical areas and including overseas, and are available, should you become a member of course, to introduce other local members who may be able to offer you practical assistance, for example. However, the options open should you wish to start today are considerably more extensive and far easier to take up than they were in the past. There is quite a large volume of very attractive ready-to-run rolling stock available, and it is a good price comparable to the more commercial smaller scales. In light of the great expansion in availability of stock, so that you don't actually have to build anything yourself before you can have something satisfying to run, I would now like to highlight some of the items that are available to the new starter in 7mm scale, both in terms of rolling stock and layout development. Beginning with stock, you may well have been initially attracted to the scale by adverts offering a new generation of 7mm scale items to prospective modelers. These come in quite a wide variety of prototypes, and here are a few of the items that I possess myself. I must point out that they are also capable of being DCC fitted, even the brake van, if you wish to follow that route. There are locomotives, carriages and wagons, and a variety of periods are also available. Of course, many other prototypes are available. So where can we go from here? You may have already purchased something because you were specifically attracted to it, or with a view to replicating a certain railway operation, as a scrapyard for example. On the other hand, you may have an idea for replicating a railway operation prior to buying anything and then acquire your rolling stock appropriately. Sounds a bit like the chicken and the egg possibly? Well, yes it is, but there is no right or wrong answer to this. Whatever you end up will be yours. So where to start? Where is it possible to get inspiration and ideas to at least help you get to the starting line? To assist in this, there are a massive number of online resources available. YouTube is a good example. However, this can be a bit hit and miss, and some of the best channels are strangely hidden for diverse reasons. However, Geoffrey Godin's Underdevelopment home layout, built with readily available commercial components, and Gordon Humphrey's An Anatomy of a Layout, featured elsewhere on YouTube and in the Gay Joe Guild 2020 October virtual show, are both good examples of what can be achieved. Considering all this, and to have information that is immediately available, what are the options to help building your own? Well, we can fall back on that age-old technology, books, and certain other specialist websites. There have been recent and older books that I personally have found very inspiring and usefully practical. The Pico magazine is, in my opinion, particularly good, as it shows that a 7mm scale layout doesn't need half the capacity of Wembley Stadium to be attractive and to portray realistic operation. There are also construction guides within the magazine, which, although they are mainly for Pico products, are nonetheless a valid illustration of what is possible for a beginner. I'm not going to run through all the books individually that I use, and if you're interested, there is a list at the end of this presentation. Other readily available books also illustrate what can be possible. The Gay Joe Guild, for example, produces a series of 3 books of small layout plans. Volume 1 is freely available to members and the other two are available at a moderate cost. One of my favourite layouts is Dallington Road, and this is in Volume 1. It is only 8 foot by 2 foot 6 in size, and it is a remarkable example of what is possible within the spaces available to you. With regards to your own layout planning, if you want to build something to say it's yours, here are some options that you might like to consider. The options aren't totally exhaustive, but it might make it easier and give you a reasonable starting point. One option may be to copy and adapt a 4mm scale plan, and while this isn't totally out of the question, it does need to be considered that a 12-inch square on a 4mm plan equates to 21 inches in a 7mm plan. Available space will become a major consideration, and there are also complications regarding track geometry, but this should not be a concern unless you are determined to follow this route. Another option is to follow a plan drawn specifically in 7mm scale, or to fabricate your own using templates which are available from several sources. For example, Pico point plans. If you search for point plans on the Pico website, you will find that each individual point has a PDF of the plan which can be printed out and used. It is relatively easy to compress or expand the plan, but it isn't a particularly modern way of doing things. One further option is to visit the following website, which, although it is American in origin, it has a number of UK prototypes in a variety of scales, and even if there is nothing there that takes your fancy directly, it is a great source of inspiration for smaller layouts. My final option is to use the simple layout planning software. For this, I personally use AnyRail, which is available free of charge, and also in a premium paid version if you wish to design larger layouts. For basic layout planning in 7mm scale, the free version is all you will need. It has templates for commercially available track, for example. It is then a question of deciding what space is available to you, setting the area within the program, and then adding track and sections until you have something that looks sensible. Then you can 3D render the plan to see what you have actually built, to see what it might look like in reality. And then finally, it produces a printed list of items that you would need to order to build it. The plans shown are the plans that I've been working on for my railway. For even though I've been modelling in the scale for a long time, I still haven't got around to building something that I can say that it's mine. But however long I have personally taken should be no bar to you to create something satisfying. There are also a number of other considerations when it comes to layout planning, but despite the ease of modern resources, it's still a good thing to check that what you have planned is feasible. A fixed baseboard, for example, is not so much of a problem, provided you can reach everywhere that you need to access. A layout in sections needs more careful planning, certainly with regards to avoiding points spanning baseboard joints, for example. If you aren't sure, ask. If you join a club or the Gauge-O Guild, there are always people who are willing to help and offer practical advice. There are also certain other books available to you with help finishing your railway in terms of scenery and buildings, if indeed you wish to have such features. When it comes to powering your railway, there are more options. There are conventional, traditional DC power supply support sources available, or you can do as I do and build your own. There is DCC, and due to the size of 7mm scale models, it is easy to install decoders, sound and even smoke units if you wish. Most of the ready-to-run options for locomotives that are widely advertised come with a choice of DCC or DCC plus sound already fitted. For the controller, there are relatively inexpensive options available, but this will largely be down to what budget is available. There are options from NCE, Lentz and Fleischmann in particular that appear to be quite popular, but again, if you aren't sure, there are avenues available to seek advice. And if you would like to see the potential of DCC, please watch Steve Hover's video, which is included in the 2020 show and at this URL. So where can you go from there? The options available to you in 7mm scale are just as considerable as what is available in the smaller scales, but with one significant difference. There is a massive legacy of items available as kits, which in the past was really the only way of producing your desired prototype. There are kits still available for a most diverse range of rolling stock at a variety of prices. And although this may sound a bit like something too advanced for a beginner, it really depends on how you wish to develop. Indeed, it's not unknown for kits to be made just for the pleasure of making them, and it is no longer necessary to have a workshop full of precision tools to allow construction to take place. There are kits that are specifically designed for the beginner in metal construction and to develop the necessary skills to enable the building of more advanced kits. There are also plastic kits for wagons, vans and carriages which range from simplicity to enormously complex. You can even build your own track on a chair-by-chair basis if you feel so inclined. There is very advanced software available that will allow you to design, print plans and then build the track to your own geometry. And finally, there is a substantial range of kits available for most types of building, structures, etc. in a variety of materials. There are specialists available, certainly within the Gauge-O Guild, if that's the way that you wish to progress. However, it is certainly not compulsory or necessary to follow this path anymore, only if you wish to do so. But there are considerable benefits from doing so. All in all, I hope this presentation has been of some assistance towards dispelling some of the myths around the difficulty of modelling in 7mm scale and offering practical suggestions where inspiration and help can be discovered and obtained. Thank you for watching, and above all, enjoy your modelling.